connecting with us. Thank you for being here tonight. Thanks for watching. I know some of you are watching locally, some of you are watching from off and away somewhere. No matter where you're watching from, no matter how you're joining us, I really do appreciate it. And so thanks for jumping on. I do want to let you know if you're watching from YouTube tonight, I won't be engaging with our YouTube audience. So if you're watching from YouTube and you'd like to engage or ask questions or make comments, you're going to have to jump on either our church online platform at live.summitpa.church, or you can jump onto our Facebook page and watch from there, because I'll be taking questions when we do some Q&A at the end of our time, or at the end of my talk tonight. We'll be sharing that. So I want to encourage you to take some time and jump on and do that tonight. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part. I really do appreciate it. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about how to develop a healthy staff culture, and what that looks like. And to be honest with you, I think it would be so easy for us to talk about coronavirus and talk about how do you lead in crisis? And if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I'm tired of that. I think you might be like me, where you're just sick of talking about that stuff. And the truth is, we could talk about it, but I don't have any more answers than anyone else does. All we're talking about is our best guesses at how to do this stuff. And so I wanted to take some time tonight, and we're just going to talk about how to develop your leadership better, how to develop your teams better, and help you with something that I think is going to be practical for you, even after now, but especially when we get back to whatever the future looks like. So thanks for jumping on. Thanks for being a part. I really do appreciate that. Pray that God blesses you tonight. And thanks so much. Tonight we're going to talk about how to develop a healthy team culture, a healthy staff. And so whether you lead a paid team, whether you lead a group of volunteers, whether you are a CEO, or whether you are maybe a lower level leader, if you're leading, it means that you don't necessarily have a title, but you have influence. And so I just want you to know, maybe you don't look at yourself as a leader, but there are people who take their cues from you. And so this is good for you, whether you have the formal title or not on the flow chart. So I want to encourage you to take some notes, lean in, and if you are watching and you would like the notes from our talk tonight, you can just email me from our church's website at summitpa.church. Email me, it's mel.massengale@summitpa.church, and just put in the notes, or put notes in the subject field, and we'll get you the notes to this talk. So that you can use it if you want to use it with your team, if you want to use it with somebody else. I probably ripped this off from somebody, so if you steal it from me, I'm not going to care. But feel free to use this, make it better, and hopefully it'll be helpful for your team. So feel free to get connected with that. So the first question is, what is culture? And culture is a word that I think we throw around in business and leadership. We talk about culture. We talk about what it is, what it means. And it can be a little bit ethereal, kind of nebulous, like it's hard to pin down. But culture basically is how you do things. It is who you are, how you think, and how you get things done. It's a way of life for a group of people. So your home has a culture to it. Your business has a culture. Any group of people have a culture. And so when we think about it, it really is just the attitudes, behaviors, and characteristics of a social group. And like I said earlier, it's just how we get stuff done, what it looks like, what you value, and how things get accomplished. So when we think about it, don't overthink what culture is, but just know you have a culture in your home, in your workplace, on your teams. There's a culture that's evident there. And so we're going to talk a little tonight about how to make that healthier if it's maybe not where you'd like it to be. And for some of you, if you've been around for a while doing leadership night with us, back in September of last year, I did the same talk. We're tweaking it just a little bit, but there was only a handful of us in the room, and we didn't podcast it. So I thought, you know what, let's roll this out. We can talk through this. This will be available on the podcast later. So you can share this, you can share the video, whatever you'd like to do. So let me start off by saying this. If you like lists, tonight is your night, because I've got several lists that we're going to go through. And the first list is this. There's kind of 4 core elements to culture that you need to think about in terms of your organization. The first one is this: communication. Communication is key. Communication isn't just what you know, it's what you communicate to the people around you. We'll talk more about communication in a minute. But we all think we're better communicators than we actually are. And so if you've got a problem with your culture, part of the problem might be you've got a very strong vision, but you just don't communicate it very well. And so communication is important. Communication is what helps the organization, department, whatever it might be, have direction. Communication helps in virtually every area of your business, of your ministry, whatever it might be. Part of communication is the second thing is expectations. Part of what we communicate is expectations. So the second element of culture is just expectations. In your business, it might be a job description. It might be performance goals. It might even be part of the next step is evaluation, sitting down with them at the end of the year and going, hey, let's talk about where you were. Hey, you didn't quite hit your goals. Why did we not hit your goals? And so that goes into development. So it's communication is the first, expectations number 2, the development is number 3. One of the problems in a lot of organizations, one of the reasons their culture is bad is because we don't work to develop people. Maybe you are great at hiring people. You hire high-level leaders, but we never develop those people. So they come in and then they stagnate. Their leadership stagnates. Their giftings stagnate because we aren't developing their giftings. And there's a myriad of reasons why we don't. But development is a key part of creating a healthy culture. Who are we developing? How are we developing them? It might be something as simple as a group training, pulling people together to do a group training. I prefer one-on-one coaching. And so if you've got high-level leaders, one of the best things you can do is pick a few that you're going to invest personally in, that you're going to spend time with, that you're going to nurture that and care for their giftings and help them develop and go to the next level. And again, we can talk sometime. We can talk in the comments or the questions, the Q&A at the end about development if you'd like. And let me tell you this too. If you've got questions about what we're going through, I would encourage you, wait till we get closer to the end to ask the questions. Give me about 20 minutes or 25 minutes. And then when we get to the Q&A, fire away. Because if you start asking questions now, I might miss it. And I want to make sure I get to as many of these as I can. So development is number 3. Are we intentionally developing people? And what does that look like? And then the fourth thing is just relationships. And that sounds very rudimentary and elementary, but the truth is that you cannot have a healthy culture on a team or on a staff if you're not focused on developing healthy relationships. And one of our core values at Summit Church is healthy relationships, that we want you to have a healthy relationship with God and with people, and those things influence each other. And so I want you to know your team will perform at higher levels if they feel cared for, and if they care for you. They're going to invest in you more. They're going to work with you better if they feel like they're loved and valued. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. One of the books that I read earlier this year, and maybe you've read it before, but I read it in January, that I loved, is called Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. And it really is about this principle that the highest capacity leaders, or the leaders that generate the most devotion from their followers, are the ones who lead sacrificially, who will put the people they serve above themselves. And that's hard to do as a leader sometimes, but what it does is it helps create and foster healthy relationships. So when it comes to relationships, we encourage often and regularly. We encourage publicly. We correct privately. So we encourage publicly. When somebody does something good, we tell them publicly. We want everybody to know, hey, this is behavior we want modeled, we want replicated, and they did a great job. But if there's something to fix, we don't do that publicly. We pull them aside privately and go, hey, you kind of screwed up on this. We need you to fix this. And that's a good way to build healthy relationships, because you're building trust. We talk about this pretty regularly around our church, and even with leadership nights, we talk about speaking truth, that we speak truth in love. One of the best things you can do to create healthy relationships is to earn trust and then speak truth in love to the people that you're leading. if they're doing a bad job, they know they are, and everybody else does. And if you act like they're doing a good job when they're not, you lose credibility as a leader. So one of the most important things you can do is speak truth to the people that you're leading in love. So speak truth in love. And then the last thing under relationships is just demonstrate it. If you want to have healthy relationships on your team, you've got to lead the way in what you do. So we'll dig into more of some of this in just a minute. So let me just talk about just a few ideas about culture. And I'll start with this. So we've had a list already. There's another list, and there might be one more list. So yeah, there is. Actually, there might be two more after this one. So here's list number 2. This is just kind of what culture is about. Some things you need to know about creating a healthy culture. Number 1 is this. Senior leader is responsible. So if you're the leader of a department, it's your responsibility to create the culture or to foster a healthy culture in your department. Maybe you're not the CEO of the company. Maybe you're not the owner or the founder. But whatever the case is, I want you to know you are responsible for the culture of your group, your team, your organization. When I came to the summit, just I guess over 6.5 years, about 6.5 years ago now, when we came to Summit, the Summit was in good place. We had lots of really good things going, and it would have been easy to blame some of the stuff on the former leader and say, well, he didn't, and I don't have anything to complain about with our former leader. But I could have done that. And many people do that. Well, I inherited this mess, or I inherited this problem, or whatever it is. And it's easy to blame them. But after you've been there a little while, now the mess is your mess. Like you either created it or you allowed it. And I would say this with culture as well. The culture you have as a senior leader of a department, of an organization, whatever it is, you've either created it or you've allowed it. And so the problem is that many times we allow an unhealthy culture to crop up in our organization. We don't do anything about it. So by the way, I didn't make that statement up. That was from Henry Cloud. I ripped it off, and it's a good one. And so just know, if you're unhappy with the culture you have on your team and you're the leader, it's your responsibility to do something about it. You've either created it or you've allowed it. Healthy leaders produce healthy culture. So one of the most important things you can do as a leader is focus on getting yourself healthy. Make sure your heart is right. Make sure you don't carry offense. Make sure that you are extending the benefit of the doubt. So when someone says something, you don't assume the worst about them. You assume the best about them. And when you do this, you're creating a better environment for your own heart to begin to flourish. And so when you're healthy, health will begin to flow naturally to the rest of your team in an easier way. I've told pastors this: the health of a church will rarely exceed the health of the pastor. So if the health of a pastor, if my heart is not healthy, the church might exceed it for a season, but it won't be able to sustain that. So I want to your heart is healthy and that you're continually growing ahead of the organization that you're trying to lead or the group you're trying to lead, because the health of that group cannot exceed your own personal health. So we have to focus on making sure my heart is right and that I'm leading well. If you don't set the culture for your organization, someone else will. Someone else has an agenda. Someone else has an idea of what you should be doing, how you should be leading. And if you don't lead well, someone else will fill that void and fill that gap. And so then you're going to have a struggle. You're going to have differing opinions and undermining conversations and all kinds of things that are unhealthy. And it just creates a problem. So what you have to do from the start is say, hey, what kind of culture do we want to create? And then lead the way in that. Begin to create that culture. Begin to create that environment that you want. And I mentioned this earlier. You have a culture whether you realize it or not. Whether you know it or not, you have a culture. And if you don't know what it is, I guarantee you, if you ask some people in your department, they could tell you what it is. Or maybe ask some people in another department that works alongside. They could tell you what the culture of your department is if you're not sure. And that's a scary thing to ask. But I bet if you ask someone, they would be able to tell you what it is. In fact, what I said in my notes is if you don't know what the culture is, ask 10 different people. They'll be able to tell you. You'll be able to aggregate it and figure out pretty quickly, hey, what is the culture that we've built here in our department or our organization? Vision determines the direction of your organization. So we understand vision. Every organization needs a strong vision. Even unhealthy organizations determines the path you'll take, but the staff determine if you'll get there. Now, the reason I bring this up in terms of culture is One of the most important things I can do as the leader of our church is make sure I bring in and employ and recruit the right leaders, not just paid staff, but dream team members in our church, because those people, the high capacity leaders that are part of our church, are the ones that are setting the culture. And so part of my job is, number one, setting the culture, but making sure the people we bring onto the team that we onboard are helping cultivate the right culture as well. Because like I said earlier, the vision determines the direction of the organization, strategy determines the path. So vision says, here's where we want to go. Strategy says, here's how we're going to get there. But your staff, your leaders, your team are the ones who determine if you actually get there. They're the vehicle that determines if you're even going to make it to where you want to go. And many times we focus a lot on vision, but we fail to come back and go, hey, is our team, do they understand the vision? Are they helping us do what we want to do? Because your staff is determining the culture of your organization. So that was number one. Number one, senior leader is responsible. No one else, the senior leader. It begins with them. Number two, culture can take years to change, but it moves quicker with leadership changes. So culture just in and of itself can take a long time to shift in an organization. So if you're part of an organization that has been around for a long time and the leadership has been very stable, they've been there a long time, the unfortunate news is it's probably going to take something cataclysmic to change the culture in your organization. Maybe something like this right now with COVID-19 and everything that's going on, maybe something like this is enough to jumpstart a culture change in your organization, but maybe not. But what I want you to know is this, if things are static, culture takes a long time to change from within. But one of the things that really helps is when you bring in outside leadership, you bring in outside ideas, fresh vision. It's the whole thing of you get used to the mess in your house. You get used to seeing something over and over and go, well, there's a pile of stuff in the corner. Well, it's just been there. We leave it. But when somebody walks in, they go, what is the pile of stuff doing in the corner? And you're like, oh, I don't know. I just didn't even notice it was there, because we get used to seeing these things over and over. We bring somebody in and they'll go, hey, wait a second. Your culture is not very healthy. Why do you guys do this? Why aren't you guys doing this? And what it does is it shakes up the culture and it allows you to move your culture forward. Carey Nieuwhof is a friend of mine that I'm privileged to know, and one of the things he talks about is that crisis is a force multiplier. So if you've got momentum going into crisis, you're going to have even more momentum on the other side of it. If your organization is unhealthy going into crisis, it's probably going to make it even more unhealthy on the other side of it. And I would say this, your culture can shift dramatically when there's big changes externally, and they bring big changes internally. So culture can take years to change, but it moves quicker when leadership changes. So when you bring somebody in from the outside, it can shift things quickly. A lot of the culture at our church changed when we brought different staff members in, because people understood my heart, they understood my vision, and they got on board and helped take our church to another level. Same thing is true in your organization. You hate to say this, but sometimes people are the obstacles to growth. And once you remove the obstacles to growth, growth happens naturally. I talk to churches and business leaders all the time that want to grow, and what they want to figure out what to add. But sometimes it's not about what we add, it's about what we remove. Sometimes there's a leader in place who's ineffective, that the organization has outgrown. And once that leader is removed or moved to a different area of the organization, it allows growth to happen naturally. And so sometimes just shifting somebody out of the role they're in will cause the stagnation to end and cause the culture to grow and become healthier. Third thing is this: culture is communicated or over-communicated. And I said parenthetically, it's over-communicated by, number one, what we say. So culture is communicated by what we say. It's about having the right language. And this is something we talk about as a staff. We have insider and outsider language. And I want every person that walks into Summit Church to feel comfortable. And what we do, what a lot of churches do, and what we have to be careful of, is having insider and outsider language. So somebody walks into our church and we use churchy language, and if you don't go to church, you don't recognize it. So if we talk about like the vestibule or the sanctuary, those are words that maybe people would know, but if I said lobby, everybody knows what the lobby is. If I said the auditorium, everybody knows what that is. And so what we want to do is minimize insider, outsider language, because that helps build culture. When you look at culture on a sociological level worldwide, so much of what binds people together in a culture is their language. It's a shared language. And if you've got kids, you understand this. My kids will use words that I don't even understand. Like it's like another language sometimes. And that's what unites their culture together. It's the shared language. And so again, when we as an organization have a shared language that people outside our organization don't understand, we're creating insiders and outsiders. So we want to make sure we're communicating effectively to attract the right people, to bring the right people in, to make people feel comfortable. So just understand your language is helping dictate what kind of culture you have in your organization, what you say, what you don't say. Even things like correction and celebration, I mentioned this earlier. You correct privately, you celebrate publicly. Those are important things because your language is dictating culture. Maybe you've been correcting publicly too often, and what's happened is you've crushed the culture because now there's not trust. Now they feel like if I mess up, I'm gonna be, drop the hammer on me, those kind of things. You're creating culture by what you say and how you say it. One of the things, if you've been around Summit, you understand this. One of the things I say at Summit all the time, every time I preach from stage, I've been doing my morning devos every morning at 8 a.m. And at the end of every devo, just about, I will say, I love you more than you know, and I'm so honored that I get to be your pastor. And this is not just like yours truly, Mel. Like it's not just a way to sign off, but it's something that I want to communicate continually to our church. Because like what I said, culture is communicated and over-communicated. So it's got to be something we talk about. Our culture is something that comes from what we say, but it's got to be over-communicated as well. We've got to say it repeatedly. And one of the things my staff has heard me say is people don't understand the vision until they can mock you about it when you're not around. So I say this all the time. I love you more than you know, and I'm so glad I get to be your pastor because I want the people that are part of our church to understand how deeply they're loved. And I might not know them as intimately as I would like and as personally as I would like, but I want them to know that they're loved deeply by me and that I'm not doing them a favor by being here, that I feel like it's a privilege from God that I get to be here and lead this organization. So I want to communicate that regularly. And one of the things that's so beautiful is people will make fun of me for that and they'll write me cards and they'll say, Pastor, thanks so much for this, or thanks for being alongside us for this, or whatever it might be. And then they'll say something like, I love you more than you know, and I'm so glad you're my pastor. And they'll kind of do it tongue in cheek, kind of like wink, wink. And I think I got you because I've been communicating this and over communicating this, and you get the culture. You get what we're trying to say now. And so what we have to do is communicate and over communicate what we want our culture to look like and what we want that to be. We share our values. We talk about our values. We post them in our lobby. If you come through our lobby right through here, you're going to see we've got them posted publicly in our lobby what our core values are at Summit Church because we want to communicate that. We want people to know by what we say. We post them in visible places. We talk about them every chance we get because we want people to see that. And the truth is we display them in our behavior as well. So we communicate culture not just by what we say, but it's also by what we do over and over and over again. Because I've known churches who said, man, we're all about lost people. We want to reach people who don't know God, but nothing they do communicates that they actually want to do that. So what happens is there's a disconnect between what they say they value, what they want their culture to be, and what their culture actually is. And this is a problem in businesses too, where we want to be the leader in our industry but there are no practices in your business that indicate that you want to be the leader in that industry. You're not doing the things that would make you get to that point. And so there's a disconnect between what we want our culture to be and what our culture actually is. And so what we have to do is change that by what we do repeatedly over and over and over and again. It can't just be something we do once. It's got to be something we do repeatedly with regularity, with consistency. Because we could say as a church that we love outreach and we love radical generosity, another one of our core values. But if we're not radically generous to our community, then how could we say we believe in that? If we're not writing checks to other churches and other pastors, believe in radical generosity. So what we have to do is continually make sure our culture lines up with what we are doing. That, hey, it's not just something we talk about, it's something we do repeatedly over and over and over so people can see that and they know that this really is what we're about. One of the things I do that I make it a habit of is I want to make sure I'm the last one in the lobby on the weekends. So when we can finally get back to church again and meet in person here at Summit, I want to be the last person in the lobby. I'm going to talk to every single person that comes through. There's some rare exceptions where maybe I have to slip away, I have to catch a flight or something like that. But by and large, Saturday night, Sunday mornings, I'm going to be the last person in the lobby at the end of the day because I want to visit with and talk to people as much as possible. So again, I can say I love you more than you know, and I'm so glad I get to be your pastor. But if I hid from you and if I tried to get away from you, then what difference does it make that I say those words if my actions don't line up with it? So just understand this. Culture is communicated by what we do and what we say over and over and over again. It's got to be consistent. The fourth thing is this: clear vision. John Maxwell says, culture eats vision for lunch. It doesn't matter how good your vision is. If your culture is unhealthy, you're never going to fulfill the vision you have. And so it's important to have a strong, clear vision, but culture is what makes the vision possible. So yes, have a good vision for your department, for your organization, for your family even, whatever it is, but make sure the culture will support the vision and help you get to where the vision is. Everyone has to know what the win is. Everyone has to be able to identify what success looks like. And if they can't, then your vision is not clear enough. One of the things we do as a staff is we talk about wins every time we meet together. Hey, what are the wins? What are the things we want to celebrate? And that will tell you what we're really about. And so if your team, if the people you're leading don't know what the wins are, then the vision's probably not clear enough. If you ask, hey, let's talk about what are the wins, what do we want to celebrate, and it's crickets, nobody can tell you anything, then that means that you probably need to go back to reinforcing what the win is, reinforcing what the vision is for your department or organization. Vision and culture are not mutually exclusive. Vision is what determines your destination. Culture is what will help you get there. Vision aligns with values. Culture demonstrates them. So I want you to hear that again. Vision aligns with your value, but your culture demonstrates your values. Again, this is important to understand how these things are intertwined and related. Vision goes down the org chart and complaints go up the org chart. A lot of times your culture is undermined because of sideways conversations, because people are having meetings after the meetings, and we've talked about this at leadership night, and this will undermine a culture faster than anything else, is when there are meetings after the meetings. And you know what I'm talking about. You finish a big group meeting, and then 3 or 4 people go off for their other meeting afterwards. That is going to mess up a culture quickly. It gets in the water, and it's hard to get it out. And so one of the most important things you can do is make sure your teams understand that complaints go up the org chart. If you are complaining to someone who can't fix the problem, you're gossiping. And gossiping in just about any organization should be a fireable offense because, again, it will undermine the culture of the organization. So gripes go up the org chart. If you can't fix the problem, then I'm not going to talk to you about the problem. I'm going to go to somebody who can fix the problem. So those go up the org chart. What goes down the org chart is vision. We push vision as far down the org chart as we can. We want every person who's on the dream team in our church, every person who attends our church, who's not even involved, that we want them to clearly understand why our church exists. So we're shoving that vision as far down the org chart as we possibly can to help people understand it better. One of the things we talk about in terms of this idea that complaints go up and vision goes down is that in Summit Church, there is no organizational confidentiality. So if one of our staff has an issue with me and they go to another staff member and they said, man, can you believe Mel? There's an understanding in an organization that is going to hurt this church. And so to fix the problem, biblically, and if you're watching and you're not really a Christian or follower of Jesus, thanks for jumping in and being a part. Matthew 18 talks about how we fix problems biblically. We go to the brother and we talk about it. And if that doesn't work, we bring somebody else with us. But it's just a biblical way of working this stuff out. And so for our church, if one of our staff is complaining about me to another staff member, our staff understands, hey, this isn't the right way to do this, so you need to take this to Mel so that you can fix this problem. That is the right way to do this because there is no organizational confidentiality. So what it means is they understand if you go to somebody and go, hey, I need you to keep this to yourself. Well, it depends on what it is. If they're saying, hey, pray for me, I'm having this issue in my marriage, you can keep that confidential. That's okay. But if they go to you and go, hey, you know what? Mel stinks. Can you believe he's doing what he's doing? Well, that's going to undermine the culture of the organization, and that cannot stay confidential. That creates a barrier in relationships. It's going to create all kinds of problems. And so we've just told our staff there is no organizational confidentiality between the staff. We have to be able to be honest and open with each other to work through things in a biblical way. And if there's a problem, let's talk about it and fix it. And if we can't fix it, then let's love each other well as we figure out how to move forward. So just understand, at least in our organization, there is no organizational confidentiality. I mentioned this, but there's a passage in Philippians 2:14. It says, "Do all things without grumbling or disputing." And the word grumbling there, it's a Greek word. It's gongusmos, and gongusos means a secret debate or a secret displeasure, not openly avowed. And so it's that conversation after the conversation. It's just unhealthy. And so what we have to do is make sure that our hearts are healthy, that we don't have those kind of conversations, and that we as leaders work redemptively as much as possible. So when those things happen, when we're leading people who make mistakes and do stupid things, and they say things about us they probably shouldn't, we work redemptively to try to restore them and try to help them get better. That's what we do as leaders. I might have mentioned this earlier. Healthy cultures drive out unhealthy people, and unhealthy cultures drive out healthy people. And so if you're a leader of a department or a group or organization and you've lost some people that you're like, man, I wish I hadn't lost them, you've got to ask yourself, am I leading an organization that's unhealthy? If I'm losing high quality people, is there something about my organization that's driving them out? Because unhealthy cultures will drive out healthy people, and healthy cultures will drive out unhealthy people as well. So you've got to identify and be able to say, hey, are these the right kind of people we want to be losing? The last thing I'll mention is this. Healthy cultures produce quicker with people you love. So if you want to have a healthy culture, learn to love the people that you're on team with and that you're leading. That's one of the most important things you can do. Man, I love our staff. I don't agree with our staff all the time. And I would even say I'm not best friends with all of our staff, but I love all of our staff deeply. I would fight for any one of our staff. I would go to war for them, and I mean that. I love them. And so it makes it so much easier to produce a healthy culture when you're surrounded by people that you love deeply, that you want to be a part of your life, that you want to share your heart with. And so I would encourage you, we can't always dictate that, but we can grow in our affection and love and devotion for the people around us. And so I would tell you to work toward that. There's a leader of, he's an executive pastor at a church down in Atlanta, Georgia. His name's Dan Ryland, and Dan said this. He said there's 4 things to look for in healthy staffs and healthy staff cultures. And he's talking about churches primarily, but I think this is applicable to any organization. The first thing is this. He says high trust. The healthiest organizations, the most dynamic staffs are going to have a high level of trust among the team. The second thing is this, low insecurity in politics. I've been a part of a church that there were lots of politics. There were lots of those conversations after the conversations, all those kind of things. People were jockeying for position, for FaceTime with senior leaders, all those kind of things. And it was just unhealthy because it was selfishly motivated. And so what Dan said is people have a high level of security on healthy teams, that it's not just about me and what I can get and all those kind of things, and politics are low. So first 2 is this, high trust, low insecurity in politics. The third thing is this, honest about flaws and problems in a non-defensive kind of way. So we can get better when we can talk about what we didn't do well. And not assess blame. Because again, I've been part of staffs that we try to figure out whose fault is it. Well, that failed. Whose fault was it? But when we can say, hey man, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? Let's talk about it in a way that we're not worried about somebody's going to get fired over this or somebody's going to have egg on their face. But let's just be honest about, man, I failed. I messed up. I didn't do very well. And let's own it and move on. And this is going to help create a healthier culture on our team. The fourth thing is this, commitment to the vision and each other is unwavering. So again, commitment number 1 to the vision. We understand what the win is. We understand what the vision is. And I am committed to that. I'm part of this team, not because I'm getting a paycheck, but because I believe deeply in what we are doing. So that's number 1. And number 2 is commitment to the team, to the other people, to each other is unwavering. So we're not going to let somebody gossip to us because I love that person and I love you too much to let you gossip about them to me. So we're going to be committed to each other. We're going to build high levels of trust, and we're going to be mature about what we do. So we're going to be committed and move forward. And what he says is these are the 4 things he sees in healthy staff. I'll add to that just as a staff, I feel like we've got a healthy culture. And one of the reasons is because we laugh together a lot. We don't laugh together as much as we used to because we're just not together as much right now. But we laugh a lot, and that tells me that there's a level of trust among each other that we can laugh together. That's one level. The next level of trust, I think, is that we can cry together. And if you've been around someone long enough, you know that it's not very hard for me to do, to cry a little bit, but we'll cry together. And that tells me there's another level of trust, that we can be vulnerable with each other, that we can share our hearts together. And then the last thing is that we can pray together. We can believe together. We can share our hearts. And if a church can do those things, they're going to be really successful. They're going to do really well, no matter what else is going on, because there's a level of trust, there's a level of buy-in. So those are the things that we've worked on, that we've done, and those are just some of my thoughts on culture. Understand this: if your culture is not helping you achieve your vision, something is wrong. If you feel like, man, we continually are not doing what we feel like we're supposed to be doing, we're not achieving our vision, we're not moving in that direction, the problem may be your culture. And so you might need to look at your culture and go, what's broken? What's not working? What do we need to adjust or fix? So those are the things I would share with you guys to think about in terms of culture, in terms of your teams, people you lead. I would love to talk about some of your questions and some of your comments, and just let me know what you're thinking. Let's see here. Bertilla Thompson said, "This is the pep talk I've needed for a while. This is great insight for home, office, church, and lots of other areas of life." That's great. I'm glad to hear that. I hope it's helpful. Because again, sometimes we get vision right. We have goals, we have dreams, all those kind of things, but our culture is a mess, and we wonder why we never get there. What else? What other questions do you guys have about culture? Yeah, Judah Thomas, our friend Judah, I love you, Judah, appreciate you, from Word of Grace Fellowship here in town, said developing people is so key for the culture. It is, and I feel like we've fallen into that. Our church has done a good job of putting the right people in place to help see that culture develop well. What other questions do you guys have? Let me know. I would love to just interact with you guys, engage with you guys a little bit on what you're thinking and what's going on. Yeah, we've got some people that are watching from live.summitpa.church, and it looks like it's just worship tonight. So there you go. If you want to watch worship, jump on live.summitpa.church from this afternoon. So yeah, tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what your feedback is about culture, what your thoughts are. I would love to hear if you got. If not, that's okay. One of the things I think helps our culture as well, I'll share this with you, is I was talking to a friend of mine today who's part of a very large organization, and this person said one of the problems in our organization is we move bad people around. So if somebody's not successful, we just move them to another area or another department. And so what it does is it just promotes unhealthiness, because what they basically do are promote people who are unsuccessful, who don't do their job well, who are lazy or unqualified, whatever it might be. And so one of the things that we try to do as a church is that we promote people who are successful at what they do. So we hire somebody for a job, and if they do that job well and they've got the right heart, then we're going to promote them. And I've been part of organizations that people wanted promoted, but they didn't do what they were hired to do well. So if you want promotion, if you want to move forward, then do what you were hired to do, and let's see, make yourself invaluable to the organization, and the opportunities will come. And that's part of that political thing. There are people that get hired, they go, I want more, I want to do this, or whatever it is, and they don't get the opportunity because they're never really successful at what they've done. And so that's helped create the kind of culture in our church where our staff understands, hey, I'm going to love what I do, I'm going to do it well, and understand that there might be other opportunities that open themselves up if I'm faithful to do what I've been asked to do. So just another thought about culture. Well, I'm not going to belabor this. Appreciate you guys watching, appreciate you guys being online with us and being a part, and I'll come back and I'll revisit the comments in this later. So if you watch this later and you post a question or comment, I'm going to come back and take a look and try to answer some of those and engage you. So let me know. I want you to know that our staff is available for you, especially if you're a church leader and you want to connect your staff member to one of our staff. We'd love to do that. If I can help you in any way, whether you're a church leader, whether you are a business leader, I'm happy to help. and speak into situations, just give you feedback, just to help do some coaching. We want you to be successful. And so that's one of the reasons why we do this. We don't charge for it. We just want to create value that we can give to you and help you do what God's called you to do better. So please take advantage of that. I did see one question pop up. Linda Hall said, what's the role in staff in developing vision, or is that top-down deal? Every organization is different. Some organizations are very much top-down. Some are collaborative. So senior leaders will be involved in developing the vision. So it really is, there's not a tried and true way that this is the right way to develop the vision. I think one of the things we did as a church is I kind of felt like God was speaking to me that, hey, this is kind of what we feel like our vision is. And as we talked about it, we kind of sorted through that. And we went through a couple of iterations of our vision before we finally got to our vision statement, Every Life Made Different. And we did have contributions from people on our team speaking into that. And that was healthy because I could help us stay true to what I felt like God was speaking, but it gave our staff a lot of buy-in as well to be involved in speaking into the vision. And so I feel like that was something that was really helpful. But every organization is different. Every department is different. And so that's something that you might just look at for yourself and go, hey, what fits for our team and what we're doing? I should have known Michael Bond was going to ask a question. Michael, thank you for jumping on and asking a question. Michael said, I've been impressed with how positive and quick to adapt the staff at Summit has been during the season. What are some ways you've worked to create this culture of resilience? How have you prevented a victim culture during these uncomfortable circumstances? That's a great question. And I'll tell you this, one of the most important things we can do to build that culture is to hire it. And so one of the things I look for when we're hiring staff is resiliency. It's not have they never blown it or have they ever fallen, but how quickly did they respond, and how did they respond after they fell, after they blew it, after they messed up? What did it look like on the other side of that? And so part of that is coaching and developing. Part of it is just making sure we hire the kind of people that are resilient, that are flexible, that can make changes. The best way to fire someone is never to hire them in the first place. And so I want to make sure we hire well in the first place so that we don't have to fire somebody on the back end. And I've told many people that I felt like were qualified to work at our church no, because I had a little bit of doubt. I had a little bit of question. And so some of that is you work on it. Some of it is you develop it, you coach people. But part of it is you got to hire the right people that are resilient on the front end. Barb Thornton said, John Maxwell's quote, everything rises and falls on leadership, has stuck with me since the first time I heard it. Absolutely. It all comes back to leadership 100%, that if you've got an unhealthy culture in your home, in your organization, whatever it is, it starts with you. It starts with your heart. So make sure your heart is right. Ricky Miller, thanks for jumping on, man. I appreciate you. Appreciate your leadership with your organization, our community. I love you, man. Miss you guys, miss your family, and ready to see you guys again. I'll give it a couple more minutes. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to post those, and I'm happy to engage and answer any questions the best I can. Let's see here. So thank you guys. I really do appreciate you jumping on. Hey, do me a favor. If this conversation today was helpful, share it with someone else. Point some other leaders in this direction, because we do this every month here at Summit, and we'll have 50 or 60 or 80 people come together for leadership nights, and we'll have Q&As and things like that. But we want this to be not just for our church, but for people who don't go to our church, people that don't go to any church. We want to create value in our community by helping people grow their leadership. Let's see here. Steph McCoy said, if strategies change, will you lose trust with your team? No, not at all. I think being willing to change strategies is a sign of a good leader. When we're married to strategies that are outdated and are not producing results, that's one of the worst things we can do as a leader, is be married to those. And just in the church world, we see this all the time, that churches are married to their strategies. They're married to a style, a way we do things, and they will never deviate from that. And so one of the things about this season we're in is that churches have been forced to deviate from their strategies, and what they're seeing is fruit because they changed their strategies. And so even with the organizations, I think if we can be honest and say, hey, you know what, this strategy was good for a season, but it's not working anymore, it's not as effective as we would like it to be for us to reach our vision, then I think our teams see that and they understand that and they respect that. If we refuse to acknowledge that we should change strategies, they're going to see that as well, and it just creates unhealthiness on our team. So great question, Steph. Jennifer Sheasley said, if you plan to make positive culture changes, let me scroll back up. If you plan to make positive culture changes, do you address previous culture issues or do you just forge forward? That's a great question. I think you can address previous culture, but what you have to do as a leader is be careful, never, ever, 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 ever trash the previous leadership or previous culture. Because what that does is there are people in your organization that love the previous culture, that love the previous leadership, whatever it might be. And so what you have to be careful to do is point out why it's important to change, but we always connect it back to the vision. Hey, you know what? Man, I love hymns. We've sung hymns for years. But man, if our vision really is to see every life made different and to reach lost people in our community, we might need to deviate from that. And so we don't trash hymns. We don't trash the people that sang hymns. But what we do is we connect it back to the vision and say, if we want to do what our vision is telling us we want to do, then we've got to change our culture. We've got to change some of the things we do in order to help us get there. And so I think that's one of the things you can do is never trash the former. Talk about the good of it because there was good there, and then just connect to the vision. Here's why we have to make this change. Here's why we're moving forward, and we celebrate that. Let's see here. Great question, though. Thank you, Jennifer. Chris Held said, great message. I'm always trying to lead my employees well. I need reminders at times to stay focused. This was helpful. Great. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much. Let's see. Okay. Well, listen, guys, I appreciate you joining us. Thank you for being on with us today. Like I said, if this is helpful for you and you feel like it'd be helpful for someone else, share it with them, tag them in the comments, or share it on your timeline, perhaps. Share the link to somebody else, shoot them an email, whatever it might be. But just know, we want you to be wildly successful. We think that the best thing for our community is for your business to thrive, for your department to thrive, and for you to do well. And one of the things we want to do is help you lead better so that you can lead well. Whether you are a follower of Jesus or not, we want you to be successful. So we want to help you any way we can. Hey, let me pray for you before we finish up our time together, and then we'll close out. So let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, thanks for being so good to us. Thanks for loving us. Thank you that you allow us to lead, and I pray that you give us wisdom to lead well. So Lord, I pray right now for divine wisdom for the people that are watching this. I pray that you give them insight, give them direction by your Spirit, give them supernatural creativity to lead well, especially in this season we're in, to bring a healthy culture to their teams and help their business, help their organization thrive in this season. So God, I just pray your blessing on the people that are watching this. I pray that you be glorified through them, and we thank you for your goodness to us. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, guys, I want to remind you this weekend is Mother's Day. Join us this weekend. My beautiful bride, Kim Massengale, Pastor Kim, is going to be bringing the word. She's going to do a great job. We've got some giveaways for moms this weekend too, so make sure you're watching with your special mom. I guess you only have one mom. Make sure you're watching with your mom, if your spouse, your wife is a mom, whatever it is. We've got some giveaways we want to bless. So make sure you watch with us this weekend. We've got Bible study Monday every morning at 8 a.m. So 2 more of those this week. We've got one tomorrow with Pastor Todd is going to be leading. And we got one on Friday as well as we close out our current Bible study on rest. So get involved. There's lots of opportunities for you online. We want to connect with you. Guys, I love you more than you know. I'm so honored I get to be your pastor, and I hope you have a wonderful night. God bless you.